What about people now that you're documenting and interviewing? How do you convince them to talk to you? How do you reach out to them? Because what if they don't want to?
Yeah, so this is something that's you've got to be very careful about. Very often, as I said, a lot of my interviews come from grandkids. It's always the third generation that reaches out over Instagram, over Facebook, and asks for me to interview their grandparents. And I've had a couple of times, particularly early on, where we started the interview and they basically said they didn't want to do it, but were being forced by their grandkids. And I think that I've got a very kind of firm line that
is it the children speaking that they wanted documented?
Maybe. Like I remember this one interview in Jammu,
yeah,
where I was invited by again the children to speak to their father, and the story they had told me was quite horrific. It's in the book that उनके एक family member की कुल्हाड़ी से leg काट दी गई थी, किसी को कमरे में बंद कर दिया था, कोई someone was left behind, and I went there expecting to hear these stories, but when we got there were all these children sitting around this gentleman, and I said कि आप कुछ तो बताएं, and he was just like, मैंने नहीं बात करनी. And the children are saying कि वो गली की गल बताओ या ये बताओ, and he just didn't want to talk. And I really thought that forgetting is as important as remembering, and you can't force someone to speak even if they have agreed to speak to you.
I think those are very important, incredible words there. Let's open it to our audience. कोई सवाल हो, कोई questions हो about storytelling, about writing to these writers, anything? Go ahead, sir. यहाँ एक mic there, please. पूछे जरूर. These are moments you may not be able to meet these writers. They're very busy and often elusive. So this is the moment. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Nikhil, and my question is to Aanchal ma'am. Ma'am, people like you who always are a little skeptical about their native places and like from where do I belong? So do you ever feel like having identity or existential crisis? Like this is the place where I actually belong to.
I don't think I have an identity crisis per se. I think we are just curious about where the origin lies. मतलब हूँ तो मैं दिल्ली से, हूँ तो मैं हिंदुस्तानी, ऐसा तो नहीं है कि कल मैं पाकिस्तानी बन जाऊंगी. I think it's very important to say that you can be one nationality but still feel for the city or village that your family came from. जो बुजुर्ग लोग हैं वो हमेशा शहर या गांव के बारे में बात करते हैं, वो country के बारे में कभी नहीं बात करते. Like people in Pakistan who have left from India, say cities like Delhi or Calcutta, they will never say India, they'll say Calcutta, they'll say Delhi. Similarly, people in India will say Peshawar, they'll say Rawalpindi, Pakistan नहीं कहेंगे. तो I think ऐसा कोई identity crisis नहीं है, लेकिन आप खुद ही सोच लें, अगर आपको अपनी नेटिव प्लेस कभी दिखे ना, मुझे पता नहीं आप कहाँ से हैं, आपको मन नहीं करेगा एक बार देखने का. तो बस यही है.
Questions to Sam. Since you said that most of the people who've connected you through Project Dastan are second or third generation, come from second or third generation, I'm curious whether second or third generation people from the UK or British second and third generation, do they see partition differently from, let's say, whose ancestors were already here? Do they have more empathy towards partition, or are they willing to engage in that conversation? Because this is a theme which has also come up very often in William Dalrymple's podcast, The Empire, that the British need to accept that this has happened. This is a conversation that they just shun. So, have you come across any such instance?
Yeah, I think it's a rather confused response. I think that there's a lot of talk beginning, but it's the difference in the UK is that people have grown up, like, Indian origin kind of diaspora will have grown up around kind of people who migrated there from Pakistan, who've migrated there from Bangladesh. But they'll also, they'll have spoken about it less, and I think come to the topic much later in life, I think is a thing that I've definitely noticed. But I don't think that the responses in general have been completely different. I think that there's generally, amongst all kind of third generation people who've reached out to me, there's been a similar wanting to see where they're from. And I think that there's something, but I think amongst the diaspora, there's also, like, if you've got a British passport, it's much easier to visit there yourself, right? Like if you want to, you don't have the same restrictions on your passport.